Company. The office is alive with the usual morning routine. Phone calls, hurried conversations, and the distant sound of printers. Employees move briskly, coffee cups in hand, exchanging polite nods. Marcus Ellis watches from his desk. He is used to this world, the one that only acknowledges him when convenient. His hands glide over his laptop keyboard, reviewing the financial projections that took him weeks to compile. He takes a breath, straightens his tie, and prepares himself for another battle of proving his worth. His name is on reports, his efforts embedded in every successful project, yet the credit rarely follows. Conversations about leadership and promotions happen around him, not with him. Coworker 1 whispers, "He's done more than Derek, but guess who's getting the promotion?" Coworker 2 sighs, "We already know how this plays out." Marcus hears them but doesn't react. He already knows, too. Richard Blake walks past Marcus without a glance, his presence commanding attention. He stops by Derek's desk, claps him on the shoulder. Richard. "Big day, Derek." Excited. Derek, grinning. "Ready for the challenge." Richard chuckles, ignoring Marcus entirely as he walks toward his office. Marcus closes his laptop. His name won't be on that announcement, but his work will be. On his way to the boardroom, Marcus notices the stares, the kind that aren't direct but linger just enough to be felt. A lifetime of silent messages disguised as casual glances. Marcus sits at the boardroom table, notes prepared, ideas outlined. Richard takes his seat at the head, eyes scanning the room. "Richard, let's hear some fresh strategies for the Thompson merger." Marcus clears his throat. "Marcus, if we shift focus to digital." Richard, cutting him off. "Derek, what's your take?" Derek, who had been scrolling on his phone, stammers. "Derek, digital assets?" Richard nods. "Exactly. We need innovative thinking. Let's move forward with that." Marcus clenches his jaw, fingers pressing against the paper in front of him. Another idea, another stolen moment. An email lands in Marcus's inbox he already knows before he clicks it. Promotion announcement. Derek Simmons, Vice President of Strategy. His fingers hover over the delete button before closing the email entirely. His phone buzzes. A meeting with Richard. Marcus straightens his tie, squares his shoulders. Inside the office, Richard leans back in his chair. A practiced, effortless authority. "Richard, Marcus, I wanted to check in. Some feedback has come up." Marcus, "Feedback?" Richard, "A few folks feel you've been a bit assertive in meetings, maybe even aggressive." Marcus exhales slowly. The word sits heavy between them. Aggressive, the word they use when a black man dares to have a voice. Marcus, "I was offering input, like everyone else." Richard shrugs. "It's just an observation." "You're smart, Marcus. For someone like you, you've done well." The words land like a slap. Marcus steadies his voice. "Marcus, and what exactly do you mean by someone like me?" Richard chuckles, waves a dismissive hand. "Richard, don't take it the wrong way. Leadership isn't for everyone." Richard slides a folder across the desk. "Richard, I need you to assist Derek's transition into leadership. Help him settle in." Marcus stares at the file, his pulse in his ears. Marcus, "You want me to train the guy who got the job I earned?" Richard shrugs. Richard, "Team player, Marcus. That's what we need." Marcus steps out of the office. Around him, colleagues glance at him, then look away. They know what just happened. No one says anything. Coworker 1, whispering, "That's messed up." Coworker 2, "Yeah, but what can you do?" Marcus exhales. He knows exactly what he can do. Back at his desk, he opens a new document. Business plan. Ellis Consulting. His fingers hover over the keyboard. Then he begins typing. His time at this company is ending, but his story, it's just beginning. Twice the work, half the recognition. Marcus sits at his desk, his eyes scanning the spreadsheets in front of him. The numbers don't lie. His work has carried this department. Yet the inbox notification tells a different story. Email. Subject, "Congratulations, Derek Simmons. New Vice President of Strategy Marcus tightens his jaw. The promotion he worked for, sacrificed for, stayed late for. It was never really up for grabs. Not for him. Colleagues pass by, avoiding his gaze. He can hear the murmurs co-worker 1 whispering, "You saw the email." Coworker 2, "Yeah, we all knew how this would go." Marcus closes the email without responding. Derek Simmons walks by, smug as ever. Derek, grinning. "No hard feelings, right?" Marcus keeps his voice even. "Marcus, you should be thanking me. Half a vo. The reports you presented were mine." Derek chuckles, adjusting his tie. Derek, "Yeah, well, sometimes it's not just about work, it's about fit." At the all-staff meeting, Richard stands before the department, clapping a hand on Derek's shoulder. "Richard, we are proud to promote someone who truly understands our vision. Someone who's been a valuable asset to this company." Marcus exhales sharply. The irony. He has been here longer, he has done the heavy lifting. Richard's eyes briefly meet Marcus's across the room. There's no apology. Just confirmation. Marcus was never meant to be part of the future they envisioned. Marcus opens his inbox again, reading the email announcement. His stomach tightens when he reaches a line at the bottom. Marcus Ellis will continue to provide operational support and mentorship as we transition leadership. His fists clench. Mentorship. They expect him to train the man who took his position. A line crossed, the department chat pings. Coworker 3. "Man, that email was out of line." Coworker 4. "You okay, Marcus?" Marcus doesn't reply. He closes his laptop, breathing deeply. They don't get it. It's not about the promotion. It's about the disrespect. He stands, adjusting his tie, walking straight past Richard's office without a glance. That night, Marcus sits in his apartment, the city lights glowing outside his window. He should be celebrating. He should be the one getting calls, congratulations, planning the next stage of his career. Instead, he is here, alone, replaying every meeting, every late night, every moment he was made to believe his work would speak louder than their biases. He stares at his laptop. Then, slowly, he opens a new document. Business plan. Ellis Consulting. The anger, the exhaustion, the disappointment. It fuels him. Marcus types relentlessly, pulling up his old contacts, sketching out potential clients. He won't be caught, off guard again. If they don't see his worth, he will create a space where they have no choice but to acknowledge it. His phone vibrates, a text from a former colleague who left the company. Text from James. "Yo, heard what happened. If you ever want to build something real, I'm in." Marcus smirks. The first piece falls into place. Days bleed into nights. Marcus juggles his regular job while quietly networking, setting up meetings, crafting his pitch. His vision sharpens. The dream isn't just an idea anymore. It's a strategy. Richard still treats him as invisible, unaware that Marcus is already working toward an exit. A major corporate dinner. Marcus moves through the room differently now. He is no longer an employee looking for approval. He is a competitor scouting opportunities. A familiar voice interrupts his conversation. "Richard." "Marcus. Didn't expect to see you here." Marcus turns, slowly offering a polite nod. Marcus. "I go where opportunity is." Richard chuckles, dismissive. "Richard, you always had potential. Just needed the right guidance." Marcus holds his smirk. He has no idea. The first contract lands, then another. Marcus's name starts circulating in business circles. Companies begin reaching out, not to Richard, but to him. His reputation builds. His portfolio expands. In the office, the shift is evident. Co-worker 1. "Did you hear? Marcus just landed the Williamson deal, the one Richard's been chasing for months." Co-worker 2. "You think he's leaving?" Marcus overhears but says nothing. He just keeps working. One morning, Richard's office door slams shut. Inside, Derek looks panicked. "Derek, we lost the Williamson contract." Richard's face darkens. Richard. Who took it? Derek swallows. Derek. Marcus. Silence. Richard's jaw tightens. Marcus walks through the office, feeling the eyes on him. This time they're different. There is uncertainty. Curiosity. Co-worker. 3. Richard actually looks worried. Marcus allows himself the smallest smile. Good. Richard watches Marcus from his office window, his fingers tapping against the desk. For the first time, he is the one feeling uneasy. The cracks begin to show. Richard leans back in his chair, staring at the quarterly report, in disbelief. The numbers don't lie. Profits are down, clients are pulling out. The once thriving company is now struggling to keep its head above water. His assistant hesitates before speaking. Assistant. Softly. Another client just backed out. They signed. With Ellis consulting, Richard's fingers tighten around the report. Richard. Gritted. Of course they did. He knew Marcus was making moves, but he never imagined it would come to this. The office buzzes with hushed whispers. Employees gather in small clusters, throwing nervous glances toward the executive floor. Co-worker 1, whispering, "This place is falling apart." Co-worker 2, nodding. Ever since Marcus left, everything's gone downhill. Richard slams his office door, the sound silencing the room. He won't admit it, but he knows they're right. Marcus walks through the building one last time, shoulders squared, head high. He stops at Richard's office, where his former boss sits behind his desk, trying to salvage what's left. Richard looks up, forced to acknowledge the man he once dismissed. Marcus, you underestimated me. Richard exhales sharply, but he has no fight left. Richard, low. I didn't think you'd actually leave. Marcus tilts his head, studying the man who once held power over him. Marcus, you didn't think I had a choice. That's the problem with people like you. You think you own the doors just because you hold the keys. But doors can be built elsewhere. Richard doesn't respond. Marcus nods, turning toward the exit. The office watches as he leaves, not as an employee, but as a man who took his power back. The media catches wind of the company's decline. Investors withdraw. The board of directors grows restless. Richard's once golden reputation is tarnished. He scrolls through the news articles, fingers trembling. Headline: Former employees thrive as Blake and Cummer crumbles. He slams his laptop shut. The truth stings. One by one, the firm's biggest clients jump ship. Competitors circle like vultures. Richard finds himself in damage control mode. But the damage is already done. Investor. Stern. We need a restructuring plan, Richard. You need to step down. Richard grips the edge of the table. Richard, you can't. Be serious. But the looks in the room tell him otherwise. Richard sits at home, staring at his empty inbox. The calls have stopped. The invitations are gone. The power he once wielded has slipped through his fingers. For the first time in his life, he is just another man looking for a job. A month passes. Richard scrolls through job postings, swallowing his pride. He hesitates before clicking on an opening, one that makes his stomach turn. Company name: Ellis Consulting Position, Senior Advisor. His jaw clenches. The irony is suffocating. Marcus reviews applications, sifting through names. Then he sees it. Richard Blake. He leans back, exhaling through his nose. He should have expected this. A knock at his door. His assistant peeks in. Assistant. There's someone here to see you. Marcus already knows. Richard sits across from Marcus, uncomfortable for the first time in his life. He shifts, forcing a strained chuckle. Richard. Never thought we'd be here, huh? Marcus remains composed. Marcus. You thought a lot of things about me, and most of them were wrong. Richard swallows, glancing down. Richard. Look, I know I made mistakes. Marcus. Cutting in. They weren't mistakes, Richard. They were choices. Silence stretches between them. Richard. Quiet. You're right. Marcus folds his hands together, observing the man who once made his life miserable. Marcus. Why should I hire you? Richard exhales. Richard. Because I know what happens. When people in power refuse to change. Marcus studies him. He could turn him away. He could let him feel the rejection Marcus once endured. But then, what would that make him? Marcus leans forward, voice steady. Marcus. I don't hold grudges. Richard. But I do believe in accountability. Richard nods, understanding. Richard. I'll prove it. Marcus leans back, considering. Marcus taps his fingers against the desk. The power is in his hands now. The silence is heavy, waiting for his verdict. Finally he speaks. Marcus, you start Monday. Richard's eyes widen, surprised. Marcus. Firm. But you won't have the power to destroy careers anymore. You'll be learning how to build them. Richard nods, grateful. Marcus stands, offering his, and Richard hesitates before shaking it. A new beginning. One built on lessons learned. Marcus doesn't need this company anymore. But soon, Richard might need Marcus. And that is a reality Richard Blake is not prepared for. Richard steps into the interview room, his shoulders slightly hunched, a man unfamiliar with powerlessness. He hesitates at the doorway before finally entering. His handshake is weak, uncertain. Marcus, seated behind a sleek desk, watches him closely, his face unreadable. Richard clears his throat, forcing a polite smile. Richard. Thank you for seeing me. I appreciate the opportunity. Marcus nods, tapping his pen against the desk. He studies Richard, taking in the contrast of the man before him now, compared to the one who had once dismissed him. Marcus. Let's get straight to it, Richard. You're applying for a position in my company. That's quite the shift, don't you think? Richard shifts in his seat, uncomfortable under Marcus's steady gaze. Richard. Yes, well, things change. The industry has been unkind lately. Marcus raises an eyebrow. Marcus. Unkind. Or just no longer willing to tolerate incompetence. Richard stiffens but forces a chuckle. Richard. Look, Marcus. I know we didn't always see eye to eye. Maybe I was hard on you before, but that's just how things worked back then. It wasn't personal. Marcus leans forward, his voice calm but firm. Marcus, it wasn't personal. You humiliated me in front of my colleagues, blocked my promotions, and made sure my talent was overlooked. You told me to my face that people like me weren't leadership material. So tell me, Richard, what exactly was it, if not personal? Richard looks down at his hands, clasped tightly together. The weight of his past actions sits heavy on his chest. He exhales sharply. Richard. I was wrong. Silence fills the room. Richard's words hang in the air, stripped of arrogance, tinged with regret. Marcus. I don't hold grudges, Richard, but I do believe in accountability. Richard nods slowly, his pride swallowed. Marcus, you're a talented businessman, but talent without integrity means nothing. If you want this job, you'll work your way up like everyone else. No shortcuts, no special treatment, and definitely no power plays. You'll answer to people you once dismissed. Richard exhales, nodding, his shoulders sinking under the weight of realization. Richard. I understand. Marcus watches him for a long moment, then extends a hand. Richard stares at it before reaching forward and shaking it, this time with more strength, more humility. Marcus. Welcome to the team, Richard. Let's see what you can do when the playing field is actually level. Richard nods, standing, the realization settling in. This is not just a job offer. This is a second chance, but one he'll have to earn. Marcus walks through the office later that evening, watching his employees, a diverse, thriving team, working together. He smiles to himself. He built this. He made space where there was once only a closed door. Richard, now at a desk among the employees, listens intently as a younger black woman explains the new company workflow to him. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't dismiss. He listens. As Marcus passes by, Richard catches his eye and gives a silent nod of respect. Marcus returns it before walking on. No words are needed. This is justice, not revenge. And this is just the beginning.